Now, it might be a little while before Game Week 22, but that doesn't stop me making a video. Players to buy and avoid for Game Week 22. Now, my first player is Rodrigo from Leeds. Really, main case in point really is that he's the talisman for Leeds. Takes the penalties. He's got goals against all levels of opponent this season. I think he scored, obviously, against the bottom teams. And then he's got goals against Liverpool and Spurs as well. He's 8% owned. He's got 0.55 expected returns per 90 in the Premier League. And that's split by 0.45 expected goals and 0.1 expected assists. They're not mind-blowing stats, but I think from the Leeds pool of players, he's probably the outstanding one. And he's also classed as a midfielder in FPL as well. That actually caught me out, I must say. I just, for some reason, just assumed he was a striker because I've not owned him so far this season. But the guy's actually a midfielder, which makes him quite exciting. For Game Week 22, as per my friends at Draft Town, he's predicted to get 9.1 points. Going into the last game week, Haaland was the outstanding captaincy and highest expected points pick, and his points were in the 8s. So Rodrigo is predicted to get more points this week than Haaland did last week when he got his hat-trick. So I think that's reason enough to consider bringing him into your team. My next player is a bit more punty, and I've actually incorrectly pronounced his name about 1,000 times now, but it's Willy Gnonto. I'm pretty sure that's how you say it. I think he's a really bright and exciting prospect. The Leeds fans that I certainly talk to suggest that he's going to play pretty much every game, that he remains in this decent form, and especially both games of the double game week. He's cheap enough where you can bring him in this week, play him, and then bench him in subsequent weeks if you choose to. He certainly allows for upgrades elsewhere. I think for me, I'm a non-Harry Kane owner. Swapping people for Gnonto saves me some budget, which allows me to upgrade other players to Harry Kane. And overall, he's got 4 returns in 8 starts in all competitions. He's predicted to get 6.4 points in Game Week 22, which is in and around, a single game week goal. So I think that's a decent total. And yeah, if you really need to, restructure your team, I think he's a great option. And the fact that he's predicted to get 6 points in the game week, he's certainly someone worth starting as well. So Willy Gnonto, definitely a player to consider. Next up, another doubler, this guy from Man United, and it's David De Gea. He's got great fixtures for the double game week. Looking at the Draft Hound clean sheet odds, he's got a 52% chance of keeping one against Crystal Palace and a 41% chance of keeping one against Leeds. So that suggests that throughout the double game week, he's going to get at least one clean sheet. He's the most likely to start of all the United defenders. I think apart from maybe Shaw, there aren't really any other United defenders that I could say are consistently going to start. Maybe Varane as well, but with his injury record, I don't think you can trust him to play every game either. But David De Gea, he's the number one for United. He's averaging 2.6 saves per game, so that suggests to me that he could get saves bonus in one of those fixtures as well. And Man United are 3rd in total clean sheets across the Premier League. So overall, I think he's a great goalkeeper and a great pick for Game Week 22. Next up, I don't really think this guy is too surprising. Marcus Rashford. He's now actually up to 7.1 million. I actually bought him for quite substantially cheaper than that myself. Obviously, he's a player to buy for this game week. I don't think that comes as any surprise to anyone. But what I wanted to make note of in this video is that he's the top player for expected points in Game Week 22. There's no one in Game Week 22 that Draft Town predict will outscore him, which makes me think that Rashford is the ideal triple captaincy pick as well. Haaland obviously didn't do too well in his triple captaincy potential week in Game Week 20, as I did. Rashford, I think, provides a really good opportunity to go for someone slightly less owned, even though he's obviously very popular in FPL. I think either people will have used their chips on Haaland or will plan to use them again in Game Week 23, which opens the opportunity up for Rashford in 22. I think he's probably the Man United penalty taker now. The last penalty that Man United got, Rashford took it when Bruno Fernandes was off the pitch. I think the last penalty that Bruno took was the one that he missed against Aston Villa, which almost suggests to me that he's no longer on the penalties. Rashford, obviously, since the World Cup, is in absolutely amazing goal-scoring form. Scored 9 goals, got 2 assists in 9 games in all competitions since the World Cup. And yeah, as I said, 11.6 predicted points for Game Week 22. He's the number 1 pick, according to Draft Hound. Okay, my next sort of slide is a bit cheating because it's not one player. but essentially it's the whole of the Newcastle defence. I think in order to make any sort of gains on a Newcastle clean sheet now, you need to be doubled up on them. They're outperforming all the premium defenders and they're much cheaper. Newcastle are now playing, I think it's a secret really to keeping the clean sheets that they are, but they're playing a stable back four pretty much every game. I mean, Botman, Byrne, Trippier, Shah are the stable back four, and obviously Pope's playing every game in goal as well. They've not actually conceded in the Premier League since November the 6th. They do have some tricky-ish fixtures coming up. Some of these Newcastle lot, honestly, they're cheap enough to bench them on some of their very difficult fixtures that you don't back to keep a clean sheet. But I still think even against the good sides, based on how well they're playing defensively, they could bank clean sheets against the likes of Liverpool. So absolutely, if you've got the transfers spare, Newcastle defence are definitely worth considering. I think, like I said, you really need to be doubled up on them now to make some real gains when they get a clean sheet. Now, this one I'm fully aware is going to be quite controversial, and that's Bruno Fernandes. I think personally you should consider avoiding him in FPL. Now, I know he's done well of recent weeks, but that's because he's been playing in a more advanced position. And I think the pattern, my observed pattern anyway as a Man United fan, is that against the weaker opposition, Bruno Fernandes tends to play in a deeper role. And then the front three of Man United consist of, Rashford, Martial, Weghorst, Antony, Sancho. They play a front three that Bruno Fernandes isn't in. Whereas against the stronger opposition, Bruno Fernandes plays in that front line. So I think, given that the fixtures are Crystal Palace and Leeds, I'm sort of considering the fact that Bruno's going to play in the midfield. And when he does play in the midfield, his returns really dry up. And his underlying numbers, certainly when he's playing in that deeper role, are much lower than we have seen from him. So I just think with the opposition considered, he's probably going to play a deeper role, and that sort of puts me off him. And based on what I said with Rashford earlier, I'm not entirely sure he's the penalty taker for Man United anymore. And I think when the next penalty comes up for United, it's probably going to be Rashford taking it rather than Bruno. One thing I will say, though, is Draft Time predict him to score almost as many points as Rashford in Game Week 22. He's the second highest predicted points player on their app. Just in my opinion, I think he's going to play in a slightly deeper role, which negates his attacking returns. I'm not saying he's a bad player by any chance. And to be honest, if he goes in your FPL team, he'll probably score because I've just said to avoid him. But based on what I've seen from United this season, he plays too deep against the weaker opposition to be a really impactful FPL player. But it's just my opinion. Let me know what you think in the comments. Okay, next up are the two Man United right-backs in Diogo Dalot and Aaron Wan-Bissaka. Now, on paper, Aaron Wan-Bissaka looks an absolutely magnificent pick for that Man United defence. He started pretty much all of the recent games. He's only 4.3 million, and those two fixtures defensively for Man United look really good. You could quite easily see them getting 2 clean sheets in both of those games. Now, that's the good points. The bad points are Diogo Dalot, he's unfit at the moment. He's got an injury, but I do expect him to be back for Game Week 22. He probably won't play the first fixture, but I do expect him to be in contention for the second, and that could well push Aaron Wan-Bissaka out of the team, which obviously means neither of these players are going to play both of the games in Game Week 22. Now, don't get me wrong, like I said, the underlying numbers for both of them, the clean sheet odds, etc., they suggest that they're really good picks. But in my opinion, as a Man United fan, I'm not sure you can back either of them to play both fixtures. And for that reason, I think you should stay away for the time being. Now, last but probably least actually for me at the moment, because they've caused me a lot of pain in FPL, and that's the Man City defence. I just don't think they've been performing at the level that they have in previous season. And it's not only that, I don't think there's a guaranteed back four you can back to play every game. And to be honest, I think that's the reason they've not been great defensively. I put a tweet out at the weekend explaining this. All of the good defences that you can remember in Premier League history, like the Man United 07-08 team, the Chelsea team under Mourinho, the Arsenal Invincibles, they all played a really settled back four. And I think that's the secret to keeping consistent clean sheets. As Pep's just been messing about with his team too much, in my opinion. Really, I'd say only Stones is the only player you can probably say is going to start most of the fixtures. But yeah, He's not that exciting an FPL pick either, I don't think. His goal threat seems to have dried up a bit. And yeah, Man City as a whole, they aren't keeping clean sheets. Now, obviously, they come off the back of a clean sheet against Wolves, but I don't really think that's too much to stand by. Wolves, probably one of the worst attacking teams in the league. They're under a bit of a transition at the moment as they bring in some fresh blood into their team. So yeah, I don't think you can really stand by the Wolves clean sheet too much. Another point, Cancelo, obviously last season at the start of this one, was the outstanding Man City pick. You know, playing every game, really high up at the pitch, getting amongst the attacking returns. He's completely fallen off a cliff too, barely even playing, and when he does, the attacking returns just aren't there. They got one clean sheet, I think, or 2 clean sheets now, in 9 in all competitions, and I don't think that's good enough. I really don't. For that reason, I think you should avoid the Man City defence. And that concludes the video. I hope you enjoyed a bit of FPL content while you wait the week or so for Game Week 22 to come around. Hopefully it made you think about some players to pick and avoid. As always with this video, I'm not going to get it right all the time. Some of these picks are obviously going to backfire on me. Feel free to clip it up and tweet me about it if you want to have a laugh. Ultimately, I'm happy to accept that. That's the way the cookie crumbles sometimes. And if you disagreed or agree with any of my picks, let me know in the comments, because I'd be interested to know people's opinions. I mean, difference of opinion is what this game is all about. So I'm not going to tell you you're wrong or whatever for having an opinion. And yeah, if you enjoyed the video, please like the video, subscribe to the Golden Goal channel, and I'll be back later in the week with another FPL video. See you in the next one.